fam, what's up? We are back with another episode of the CEO Pulse podcast where you get the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. I have a fellow Humanian, or another dude from Yuma, just like me. So I'm excited about that. But he also happens to be a really, really good friend of mine. He's somewhat of a legend here in the Valley when it comes to real estate investments. Your brain is just wired differently when it comes to deal creation. We have none other than Mr. Eric Sage with us today in the podcast. I'm going to pick your brain on 1,000 things. One of them is going to be, of course, liens and drafting, creative liens and going about how to structure money now, getting monthly revenue from that kind of stuff, and then money in the future, which is an incredible approach. There's so many things that I want to just pick your brain on. You did launch the Creative Dealmaker Academy a while back along with Nick, right? Nick Legomaro.
Yep.
And he was previously on the podcast. And you guys have a phenomenal way of going about deal making, especially when times are weird and times are like, everything's all over the board. So thank you so much, man, for being here. I'm excited.
Yeah, Rafael, thanks for having me. We've known each other for a long time. I think we have a lot in common, especially from being from Yuma. Nobody even knows where Yuma is.
Yeah.
I think there's a Yuma, Colorado, isn't there?
Is there?
Like that? Yeah.
It's probably just as lonely.
Yeah, a great. People ask, what the heck did you do in Yuma? And I just said, growing up, we didn't know any better.
Yeah.
We just hung out at the river and water skied and rode quads and played golf, I guess. Another thing I did as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I liked the Yuma life, but once you get out, man, it's like, wow, it's like, it reminds me of one of those movie scenes where you start seeing the brightness of the world and just, I don't know. It's just different perspectives, right?
You and I will probably never go back there unless it's to see family, and we don't even do that.
Yeah,
they come to us now.
Yeah, mom's there, and you go back and hang out with friends and family. But I don't know. It's just it's a different pace.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But yeah, man. So break it down. Again, like anybody who's done deals, and I'm in Maricopa County, the Phoenix Valley, but anybody who's actively doing stuff, more than likely knows who you are just because of the approach that you have to deal making and deal structuring.
Right.
Before we dive into the concept of being a lien lord instead of a landlord,
there's the lien
there
lord
it is.
shirt.
There's the swag.
Yeah. I think it's a little bold today. That's a new shirt we got. So.
Love it. Sage, lien lord.
Yeah.
Bam.
Yeah.
And before we jump right into it, give me a little bit of background, or give us a little bit of background on how you got started and as an entrepreneur, how you got started with real estate investments and what kind of kicked it off.
Yeah, well, so I guess quick story is I started in real estate in 2004. I've been full-time in real estate in 2004. I bought my very first rental property in 2003, just like any traditional person would. I had found a real estate agent, and my real estate agent was a friend of mine, and his friend was a real estate agent, was an agent that had a house for sale. So I paid retail, put my 15% down, and figured I would cash flow and pay it off in 30 years, and then I would have my income from that. And so that's how I learned. That's how I bought my very first rental property. Fast forward a year later, I was actually in the elevator business. I was elevator salesman to diaper salesman. So I went from elevator sales right after I actually had a stint of professional golf. Once I retired from that, I went into elevator sales, and then I did that for about 6 or 7 years, and then I got into the medical distribution business. Yeah. And my main job there was selling diapers to long-term care facilities. So I was a diaper salesman after that.
Wow!
So right when I quit my elevator job and went into the medical distribution business, I started door knocking pre-foreclosures. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so I didn't really know what a pre-foreclosure was. All I knew is there was distress, and I just started door knocking. So what I would do is on weekends from 10 to 2, when people were home, I would go door knock. And so one of my really close friends that I played golf with, he and I went to college. We went to the University of Arizona. Bear down. Anyway, so we ended up traveling together, playing some golf professionally, and then I retired from that. And then I had this foreclosure list that we found. So keep in mind, 2004 versus today was a whole different concept
very different times
and model in regards to data and all the information that we have at our fingertips now. So anyway, I did my very, very, very first list that I found. I just went close by my house. I door knocked it. It was a Friday afternoon. I'll never forget it. You never forget your first deal, right?
Yeah.
So I door knocked this house. It was a beautiful home in Tempe, Arizona. And I door opens up, and this picture the largest NFL defensive lineman that you can picture answer the door. So I look up. I'm like, hey, man, I think your house is in foreclosure. Is there anything I can do to help you?
Yeah.
That was my script because I didn't know. I didn't know anything other than I was, so sure enough, he's like, I got it taken care of, and slams the door in my face, which is kind of a common thing. So I went back to my car. I didn't have any cards, I went back to my Taurus, which was the Ford Tauruses were what medical salespeople drove back then.
Yeah.
And so I opened up my car. I went back in, ripped off a piece of paper, wrote down my name and phone number, and went back and says, hey, man, if something changes, just give me a shout. Yeah. So anyway, what happened was, sure enough, a few hours later, his wife
right out of the gate.
I was like, I'm going back. Now, keep in mind, I had a full-time job. I was making a very good living. I had nothing to lose. It didn't matter to me what I just thought it was the opportunity. Yeah. And so there's someone from above was looking down on me and wanted me to be in this business for sure. And so I ended up going back, and sure enough, his wife ends up calling me and says, yeah, we have a problem. And we filed bankruptcy, and we were in foreclosure. Yeah. We're back in foreclosure, and we have till Tuesday. So keep in mind, this was a 3-day weekend. So the 3-day weekend came along, and they had from Friday until Tuesday at, I think it was 5:00 to reinstate their loan. Yeah. So when you file for bankruptcy, it does stop your foreclosure. But as soon as it's discharged, it goes back in, and you're not even notified.
It goes right back to where it was.
Goes right back where it was. So they were going straight to auction, and so I said, okay, well, would you like to have a meeting with me on Saturday morning or on Saturday at 1:00? Yeah. Yeah, we'll do that. Great. So now let's go back to Eric, not knowing really what a foreclosure was, and I've got a meeting set up at 1:00. So who's the first person I'm going to call? The guy that sold me my first rental property, and he's like, hell, man, I don't know what to do.
I just do sales.
So go back to Yuma. Yeah. 3 weeks prior, I was playing in a golf deal at a wedding with my friend. My friend happened to be, that's what he did. He went from cameraman to pre-foreclosure bailout guy. And so I called up Marty. He's still in the business. And I said, hey man, I got this house. And he goes, okay. He goes, what's the address? And he goes, how in the hell did you get a meeting with him? I've been door knocking them for 1.5 years.
The guy, are you serious?
Yes.
The same lead?
Yeah, my guy. He goes, I have a meeting set up at 1:00. I don't know what to do. He goes, perfect. Let's JV on the deal. So he shows up. We reinstate. So here's what we did. So we show up. This is back then, like we would quit claim houses in there. I mean, there was no formal things like we know now. And
literally the Wild West.
Yeah.
It was, even 2009 when I got started, things were so different.
Yeah. It's crazy. So we ended up, the cool part about it was we show up, they had no choice. They owed $58,000 in 2 days. Wow. So they had no chance other than to work with us. So what we did is we got on the phone with their bank, got the reinstatement numbers, what you do when people are behind on their mortgage. We signed a contract. What we did is they would sell us the house. We'd reinstate their loan, and then we would give them an option to buy back. That was our business plan at the time. And so we probably wouldn't do that in today's market because of the opportunity to buy back then was 6 months of payments and a heartbeat, you could get a loan. Now you actually have to qualify and go through the different processes and anything. Yeah. So anyway, we ended up going down to, so my partner in the deal, which is, I always tell everyone, like, we teach this stuff too. It's like, find a mentor that knows what the heck they're doing.
Who not how is one of the biggest principles, I think, in as an entrepreneur, period.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. So the cool part about it is we, my partner, at the time when we did this deal, he had everything dialed in. He knew how to reinstate. And, the first question is, I'm like, how the hell are you able to get $58,000, in a couple of days? And so he had that figured out. And so we end up reinstating the loan. He goes, okay, I'll pick you up on Tuesday, because it was a 3-day weekend. I'll pick you up on Tuesday morning. We'll go down to the courthouse. I'm going to pull up. When I pull up, you're going to get out of the car. You're going to walk up the steps. And here's the TS number, the trustee sale number. And you're going to show them that. And you're going to give them the $58,000 cashier's check. And they're going to give you a receipt. And you're going to walk back down and get in my car and want to drive away.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And so that's what I did. And so at the time he had
the hitman.
Yeah, at the time. And so this house was hot, right? Yeah. It was a beautiful home in Tempe, Arizona. Probably a 4,000 square foot house. And I walk up and everybody's ready to just pounce on this thing. And I walk up and I hand them my money and they gave me the receipt and I walked away. They're like, who the hell is this guy? Like, I'm a diaper salesman just showing up and stopping the sale. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So anyway, the best part, so like the whole Lien Lord thing and Creative Deal Maker program that we created and what we do for a living right now is one of the best parts about this entire process of that day and where I'm at, gosh, what are we, 2004 to 2023, is 19 years later, is that the people we bailed out, they still live in that house today.
Really?
They still live in that house today. If it wasn't for us stopping that sale, it wasn't for us helping them get back together financially, to get they're clearly their head was in the sand, right? They just needed a real wake up call. Okay. And this poor guy that actually door knocked, he actually played in the NFL. He actually did play for the Cardinals, and he had some bad investments that went south on him and had some people take advantage of him. And he had a beautiful family and a great wife and the whole thing. And so we stopped it. And then sure enough, a year and a half later, they were able to buy it back from us. They were there. And so it was funny. I went by that house because I always like to go back and see where did I start? Like, what the heck, And sure enough, I pull it up. I pulled it up, knew that they still owned it. Then I went by there. I didn't door knock them again because I'm like, you remember me? Like, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be in this house, So anyway, but the best part about that whole thing, okay, is what I learned is what I love to do. I like to find deals. I like to solve problems and help people, but also like to have homeowner. I like to help people with home ownership. So I help them save their house and recreate home ownership the way we structure it. We structure it completely different now than we did then, but I didn't have to renovate the house. I didn't have to do anything other than find it, keep them there, and make sure they can make their payments, right? And so that's where like fast forward now to 2023. That's why I love doing note creation, because now I can go do the same thing, but find a family that actually can afford it, has a down payment, can afford the monthly payment, and then I don't have to pay tax and insurance, maintenance, repairs, get a loan, any of that stuff. Yeah.
I mean, that's super, super interesting, especially now. I mean, the way things are panning out with rates all over the place, inventory goes crazy, right? Like some months we're dry, some other months we're decent, some other months we're overloaded. I mean, it's like right now it literally is the Wild West, but throughout the country. Is this, what you do now, is that can you do it all over the place, or is there just restrictions to like certain areas?
So the best part about being a lender, like you can be a lender in all 50 states, right? Some people don't, but the way we structure our loans and the way we protect some of our risk in these deals is like, I think I have notes in like 24, 25 different states. And I hover around 100 notes at a time. Like I'm not the Grant Cardone's that has $100 billion worth of real estate or whatever. I'm a lifestyle entrepreneur. I have 2 great kids, and like after this podcast, I'm going to go pick my daughter up at school on a Friday and at 12 o'clock and go take her to her game and watch her soccer game at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Like that's my thing. I've been blessed to be able to do that full time for almost 20 years now. And so, but my purpose behind it is like, how many homeowners can we help today by educating people like yourself and the community, the real estate community, and without a whole lot of stress, man. Once you find a house wholesale, and it doesn't have to be perfectly wholesale. Like I'm buying a retail house actually this week, but I'm getting the seller to carry. So now we're getting really creative on how we're structuring those deals, because the debt and the cash flow is what's the key to this whole thing.
Give me a breakdown. Now I'm curious about the nuts and bolts, and I haven't done deals. I haven't structured deals like that. I like simplicity. I go for the wholesale stuff. If creative financing, if it's possible and whatnot. So a couple of different ways of structure, but nothing as detailed as this. Give me. Can you break it down? Just give me like the step by step kind of like bullet point process of how this entire thing works?
So I'll
Because
give you an
I'm
example of a
curious
deal that I'll give you a real deal. So wholesale deal,
Yeah.
Phoenix, Arizona. I love the West Phoenix model because
Yeah.
I like to keep in the median home price areas. But I will tell you, as I look at everything, right? Like, you know,
And when you say wholesale deal, you're talking equity? in the
yeah.
property?
So when I buy a house, so I'll give you real numbers and then I'll talk to you about the high end deal. I had a $2.4 million deal that we could sell for 2.8 with $1 million down, but the seller only wanted, I think it was $1.4 million. We sold it with $1.4 million down, but had to put $1 million down. So now we're talking like massive numbers.
Yeah.
But the math still works.
Yeah.
If you structure it right, you know. So anyway, little median home price house, $200,000 acquisition. So I'm buying it for $200,000 at a wholesale price. Okay. After repairs, probably $350,000. Okay. Needs everything. Okay. It's not good. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. 1-car carport or 1-car garage, I think it was. That garage will be able to be turned into another bedroom, probably a bath.
Yeah.
They'll make it a 5-bedroom, 3-bath. Not the best corner, but the house itself for the price that we're paying and what we're going to offer a seller finance buyer is great. So we'll sell that for $280,000. So buying it at $200,000, selling it for $280,000.
As is or fixing
as
it?
is. We're going to get $30,000 down on the $280,000. Okay. So they're going to owe us $250,000, and we're going to charge 10% interest. And so that deal, and so the way I structure it and I always tell everyone, we do these deals with little to no risk. And the little to no risk is during the acquisition and disposition, meaning buying it and reselling it.
Yeah.
There's a gap there. So how did I come up with the $200,000? Well, I'm fortunate that I have some money, I have some assets, and I'm able to get 100% financing on that deal.
Yeah.
So people go, well, God, these lenders are they used to do 100%. Now they're freaking out.
Yeah, they're doing
like,
70, they're doing 8. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I do now is I have assets that are free and clear. So I'm like, hey, I'll put up 200.
Collateral.
I know you want like you want me to put 20,000 down. Okay. Well, I have an asset free and clear over here. Just collateralize that, meaning they can tie their thing isn't about the down payment. It's the security.
The security
and
of
the risk.
loan, yeah.
And so anyway, so I get 100% financing for $200,000. Now keep in mind, it was probably like 180 something. And then after everything, it was 200. Okay.
Yeah.
So now I sell that house for 280. That buyer is going to go put sweat equity into it. They're going to go rehab that house in half the time and half the amount of money that I would, because they're going to do their own sweat equity. Now, when I talk about sweat equity, that house would have probably cost me 60 grand, 70,000 rehab.
Yeah.
Well, they'll do it for 30 because they're going to use their own personal labor to do it, right?
Yep.
Shit, they might even do it for less. I don't know, but it's going to be nice, right? So now I've provided, so they'll put 30,000 down. They'll go put their own sweat equity in. And
do you pre-qualify them like based on credit and all that stuff?
So it's not credit based. We are not credit based. We are ability to pay based. Okay. So a lot of our buyers, this particular buyer in this example is a foreign national. I think they're actually from Mexico. They don't have a social security number, but they have a tax ID number. So they pay taxes.
Yeah.
They're just not Americans, right? But they want to own a piece of America. So they'll work really hard for that $30,000. Now, keep in mind, that's not a ton down, but based off what they're going to do to the property, this thing's going to be worth $350 and I'm in it for $200. Yeah. And they still owe me $250. So that I'm still in a good position. And so where I limit all risk on this particular deal, is I'm going to sell off, I'm going to create 2 mortgages. I'm going to create a first for $200 and a second for $50. Okay. So then I'm going to sell off that first lien. So the Burr model is, go get a loan for $200 and then arbitrage it, right? Well, that's okay if you're getting 3 and 4% debt, which I have, and I'm fine with it. But now it's pushing 7-8%.
Yeah, it's getting up there.
So why not just create a 10% first lien, sell it off to Rafael with all your money because you want a nice secure lien that you don't have to deal with, and then I get to free clear second lien plus whatever down payment that I receive. So it's basically I get a wholesale fee. I'm on that deal. I'll probably make more than the wholesaler made on the cash down payment. Plus I have a $50,000 second lien that I'm getting paid, $400 and change a month. So there's my long-term cash flow. There's my passive
what do you
income.
What do you usually do for interest on that second?
So everything's around 10%. So I try to keep everything affordable, right? So that house, if I remember correctly, I know in that market, if I sell a house for under $3,000 a month, and I give them a 30-year term,
Yeah.
that the borrowers are good with that. Is it a little bit higher than rent? Yeah, but they get that payment forever.
Well, they wouldn't be able to qualify.
No, there is no option for that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one thing. It's a niche buyer, right? You are presenting an opportunity. They are buying the property for under retail. I mean, it's
Yeah, they're going to add value. So now they're going to have $100,000 worth of equity based off what they owe us. And and I provide a home ownership for a family that truly deserves it. Because what happens is, this is another thing that happened over the last few years for me, was I saw a lot of 5-year options for this type of client. Okay. For this non-bankable, non-traditional bankable borrower. Okay.
Yeah.
And what happens in 5 years? They have there is no bank option for them.
If they don't get ready within those 5 years.
So their option is to pay it off.
Yeah.
Or hopefully the landlord renews. But a lot of these lease option landlords, their intent is never to renew. It's not. So I just use my expertise
the fee
of finding
for a second option.
Yeah, they might do that. And I did the same thing, but I like, so the difference is, here's an example of a deal I'm doing right now. I have a note in Colorado, and I did a contract for deed versus a deed of trust. I'm now in my borrower. He's a great payer. He's just kind of a radical, and he started doing some work on the house that he didn't get permits for, and all this other stuff that goes on with that. Well, our company as a contract for deed it'd just be like a glorified lease option. We're on title, right? So the city's now getting in contact with me. They're I'm not going to say suing me, but they're being very hard.
They're being mean.
They are. This guy has equitable interest in it. And so basically he controls the property. There's really not a whole lot I can do. Now, technically he could be in default because of what's going on here. But my point is, as a landlord, I now have this problem.
Yeah.
If I was just the bank on this one, I'm just talking about mistakes I've made. Yeah. I wouldn't even be having this problem. I'm just the lender in first position, secured, okay? Or in second position, secured. I'm not getting all these other things and time that I'm dealing with. And so that time that I'm dealing with this is time that I'm not taking away going and buying other properties that I can provide home ownership for other people. Right. And so that's why I like this model. A lot of people say, well, gosh, you lose the depreciation, all the tax benefits of being an owner. And so my tax benefits come from commercial properties and different things that I do outside of that. So my single family home business is true cash flow. Like literally I get emails every day on loans that pay me every day because I have so many of them. You know, when you have 100 different loans, they start popping in your account. It's all serviced. It's all escrowed. Everything's done pretty smooth the way we've set up our system.
Wow. I mean, that's another question. What do you do about the, so you finance, for example, you would finance the $200K, right, from a lender. Do you burr out of it, or what do you do? Because I mean, those payments tend to be pretty high.
Yeah. So good question. What do you do about that? So my business model is I borrow it because I know I'm exiting out to a seller finance buyer. So I borrow that money. I get deferred payments. So I don't make any payments. I have 12 months to go find an end buyer and create the first and second. And so to exit out of my first lien is selling it to a note investor that wants that 10%, 70 cents, 72 cents on the dollar deal. And so now they're long-term. So you have your short-term lenders, and then you have what we call my enders. These are people that have self-directed IRA money. They've made millions of dollars in selling companies. They want a secured asset. They want to get paid monthly. They may or may not want to be in a syndication, which they have zero control over. Like, let's be honest, what's going on with apartments right now in 2023 with all these syndications, and they're not able to refinance out of their bridge debt? What happens to the syndicators? Not the syndicators, the investors.
The investors.
There's no way, there's no exit for them other than to wait.
Yeah.
Which probably still going to be fine. But
this
note investor,
the degree of control is not there, which is, I mean, it's a big thing, right, for investors.
This note investor that'll buy this $200,000 first lien, it's 72 cents on the dollar, whatever it is. It's probably better than that if I do it right. They're going to get a check the next month, and then the month after that, and the month after that. And if there's a default, guess who's in second?
Yeah.
Me, who specializes in distressed sellers. Yeah. So almost go help fix the problem. If it's short term, we know how to fix it. If it's a long term, we know how to fix it. We can foreclose. We rarely foreclose. We know the cost of foreclosure. We know the cost of everything to make the exit clean and helpful for our borrowers. But most of our borrowers, man, like they'll go do some sweat equity to pay their mortgage. They do not default. Our borrowers do not default. Will they default? Have they default? Yes. It's very rare though. It's very rare.
The desire for home ownership is there. I think, I mean, default will come in more of a situational type of, circumstance as opposed to.
I'll tell you one default I had a couple of years ago, which is I don't have many. On all the homes I've created notes on where I found it and I originated thing from start to finish. Those are the ones I have the best success with. And I recommend everyone doing it too. But I had a borrower. So it was a sister, brother, and sister-in-law. Yeah. They all qualified. They all had that's where the ability to pay came from. And sister-in-law and brother went to prison forever. Like, I don't know what they did. I didn't go into detail with it. And so they were gone. And so the borrower that was left there, she had I think their payment was $1,600-1,700 a month. She had a third of it, and that's all she could afford. And I said, well, you put $28,000 down. That's some serious money. The house has appreciated. What can you afford? Where do you need to go? And she says, this is what I can afford. And I guided her in the right direction. I gave her some cash for keys, most of her money back, if not all of it. If I think I'm mistaken, I think I did give her all her money back so she could go take care of her kids with it. Right. And then I was able to sell it for more and get a bigger down payment and a bigger monthly payment. Yeah. So that's what I did.
Recycle the process.
Yeah. I just created another wholesale deal for myself. Yeah,
a second deal, from that.
Yeah, it's like the deal after the deal, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's very familiar to lease options, right? For example, like somebody doesn't fulfill the option, then you just create another option, then kind of retake it from there. Yep. So basically, on that first, which happens to be the bulk of the debt, right? Mm-hmm. You sell that to private investors. I mean, somebody who comes in and
so we have note investors. So the cool thing about what we do, there's note investors, and there's real estate investors. Yeah. Typically, they are not in the same business model, and note investors are their own people there. But I create my own note investors too, because I have a lot of people that love the passive income. They love our company being in second position. They love the borrower that puts substantial down. They love their ability to pay. They love all this note. And actually, we were talking about that. My superpower is making sure you create it correctly. Because if you don't, like Nick and I, Nick Ligamaro, my business partner, creative deal maker, he's like the note creator master, and like the underwriting process and all the paperwork and all the terms. And so now what we're doing is, you have an A to B transaction on a wholesale deal, and then a B to C on the either selling to a cash buyer or an end user or novations or whatever that is. What we found now is there's an A to B note. If you get the seller to carry, you do create an A to B note that covers you. Yeah, and then a B2C note that covers
that's
you.
What I was thinking win-win. About. That's what I was thinking about right now. I mean, because you're for example coming into the wholesale right deal. If you can create, we could seller financing deals all the time, but if you have that and then turn it into a second, a holding position. I mean, you have a double whammer there.
So the cool thing about the difference between this and the BRRRR model. Yeah. So some people are like, well, I'll just leverage my first lien, or they call it hypothecation. So I'll borrow against the 200. And so Nick and I's model is like, I'm not old, but I'm getting older, and I don't want to say wiser, but when I sell off that first lien, now when you do first of all, I'm going to get about 20 or 30% more than any BRRRR model on this deal for sure, with my experience. But now I don't have to borrow once the first lien's sold. There's no BRRRR. Like, I'll give you a great example of a deal I have in Louisville, Kentucky. I just got a call from my property manager, and I do have rentals. I try not to, but sometimes I have them, and maybe they're getting ready to exit on a seller finance deal or whatever, or maybe they convinced me to use Section 8 in this particular market that maybe I had a hard time selling and whatever. So this deal comes in, and he's like, "Hey man, hurricane came through, half the roof blew off." Sends me a picture. And he's like, it's going to be $800. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So I get about $1,200 a month on that deal. So between the $800, the tax and insurance, and my property management fee, I've lost all my income for that month.
Yeah, for that month.
Because I'm a landlord on that deal. Right. Where if I'm the lien lord, how often have you ever called your bank when your roof blows off?
This is it's a me problem.
You don't. Yeah, you don't.
It's a me problem.
So just it goes back to my energy. Like, now I got to send you money. Now keep in mind, I have systems and processes in place for all systems, all parts of my businesses. that doesn't, that homeowner would never call. They would
Yeah.
just either do it themselves or they would have insurance cover it. Right. I mean, I didn't even deal with insurance. It was such a small amount. I was like, whatever, just go take care of it. I know I'll get the payment in the mail, next month. But that doesn't happen. I was doing a presentation the other day, and I was looking at a deal that's like, I don't know, it's like 5 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, I swear to you, the second of every single month, like clockwork, for 60 months, the same exact payment came in. There's no expense.
Yeah.
I don't own the house. There's nothing for me to do.
Yeah.
Other than collect
And these are
it.
payments on that second, right? So,
Yeah. Well, this one was a first lien that I had.
Yeah.
But it's the same model. All my seconds, all my first. There's nothing for me to do because the servicer collects the money and sends us the money and pays all the taxes, insurance, and all that other stuff too. But the cool part about our market today, so back 2004, Eric's door knocking houses from 10 to 2 on Saturdays when people are home watching TV or whatever. I was doing a lot of subject twos back then. That's how I bought them. And so now sub two's a hot topic. Seller financing is a hot topic. Creative financing is a hot topic.
Yeah.
All of that's phenomenal, right? There's risk though.
Yeah.
Right. So creating the structure when seller financing or wraps or all pre-foreclosures and all this stuff, just doing that paperwork correctly to keep you from harming the borrowers that the buyers or the sellers that you bought from, and then the buyers that you sold to, and structuring in a way to where if there is an issue, you have an exit. And that's what we really specialize right now. And we're getting a lot of people going, oh God, Eric, you're so right. Like I sold on a wrap, but I didn't structure my notes correctly, or a first and second for that matter. Due on sale clause happens, and now you have to pay off that loan and not harm the borrower because you didn't structure the paperwork correctly. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. There's so many intricacies to it. I mean, I remember back in 2012, 13, when we were structuring seller financing deals and wraps and that, that sort of stuff. I mean, basically we had 3 ways of going about it, but we ended up bringing somebody else in to figure that out. Yeah. Just because, we had a real basic, clause, kind of work that went into it just to structure the front end and kind of like have that conversation with the sellers, right? Yeah. But we would have to bring somebody else in to build the package behind it. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind it, and if you don't do it right, you are putting people in. The
other thing I'm seeing in the market right now is so our model is getting cash up front, like you would get on a wholesale deal. Yeah. But then you have no money. Then on Monday you wake up and you're unemployed again.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Or if I create a note, I get a little cash and then I get money. So now I'm getting paid by my borrower, which it's the ultimate continuity model. Like you and I sell education, right? And we help people out in continuity. I mean, there's turnover, whatever. But when you create a note, our average note's like 10 years. Yeah. Can you ever get a client and getting paid for 10 years? Yeah. But you don't even have to do anything to them? Yeah. I mean, that's a note. That's a mortgage. Yeah. It's fantastic. I mean, think about all the more. I mean, all your listeners, like how many people have a mortgage and how long have you been paid and when was the last time you called your bank or your servicer or whoever? It doesn't happen. But
what's the average amount that you get on a second?
It's going up. It used to be when we first started, like let's say a year and a half, 2 years ago, they're in the 20s to 25 range. And now we're getting bigger seconds because we're getting able to get bigger, better deals. We're probably getting less cash now, but we're getting bigger second liens. Yeah. So about 40,000.
40,000 in second liens, which turns out 10%. To be
it's about $400 or $500 a month.
Or something. It's nothing to frown upon. No. I mean, you stack those up, have 10, 15, 20 when you're not handling the property management or all the headaches of being a landlord. Yes. Yeah. It adds up.
And so what I found recently, or not recently, I've in the last year or so, I found that sellers have lots of equity, right? Yeah. And so we've been offering them bigger down payments, like. A lot of wholesalers, which I love, they can go get 0 down, 0% for 30 years. Okay. That's not common, but it happens. Okay. But what if you went to a seller and they're like, hey, why don't I give you 30% down? Yeah. And I'll give you cash flow and then I'll get a lump sum payout later. Yeah. So what we've done is our model is cash now, cash flow, cash later. Meaning you get cash up front from the down payment when it's all said and done, monthly cash flow. And then eventually if they pay it off or refinance, you get a chunk of cash, right? Yeah. So, and so we're like, well, why don't we do that with the seller? We'll give them cash up front, which they need and love. And then we give them income so they protect themselves from themselves. Yeah. Because people get $300,000 or $400,000. They're like,
And that's
They'll
on
blow
them
it.
carrying
And
a
then we
portion
turn
of
them
it.
into the lender.
Yeah.
And then we do a wrap, and then we wrap the wrap basically.
Right.
And then we know how to go find a seller finance buyer. We know how to structure the paperwork. We know how to create all the terms to protect everybody involved. And so like now I do those things. And so they're, $500 cash flows on those deals is
it adds up.
Is very, very common. And I mean, I'm doing one right now. I'm paying retail.
Yeah.
But I'm giving the seller, like, I think we're giving them 65,000 down.
Yeah.
But all they wanted was $1,000 a month on the balance.
Yeah.
Which I know I can go sell for 20. I think it's 2,500.
Wow.
So I'm going to make 1,500 on that
bucks
one.
on that one deal.
That one deal, and I have no risk too because the seller's is going to carry. I'm going to sell off that first lien for my initial cost, and then I have non-recourse on the seller's money, and then I'm providing them income for. I think they wanted 5 years. I'm going to maybe push them to 10.
Yeah.
So because I like 10 because that gives me plenty of time to pay it down and do my thing. But yep.
This is a lot of information. This is probably a podcast episode that you're gonna want to go back and review. I know I'm taking a ton of notes.
Yeah.
This just turned into like a little master class.
Yeah.
Which is awesome, man. I mean, it's an incredible strategy, right? But again, it goes to show what looking at deals from a different perspective can do, right? And you take that process, that model. I mean, you can apply it anywhere. You can apply it. I mean, why wouldn't you be able to do it on the commercial space?
100%.
Right.
Do it on the commercial. Well, that's what's going on with apartments now.
Yeah.
And so there's all this like high interest debt. So think about it. You were able to refinance that debt at 4 or 5%.
Yeah.
Now it's 8. I mean, what does that do to your cap rate? What does that do to the value of that property based off the cash flow? And so, it's an amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
But when you structure it, and that's what we specialize is writing the terms. So we write all the terms to in our favor.
Yeah.
Like you would write any other contract. And so when we write it in our favor, we have so many exits and so many opportunities for the note space.
Yeah.
It's control versus own, right?
Right.
That's where we're at.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. So since 2004, switching gears here a little bit, since 2004 when you started rolling on this, up to now, I mean, you've seen the highs and of 2005 when things were going great and all that stuff, and then the lows of 2008. How did you manage to just kind of mitigate all that stuff from a mindset standpoint?
Good question. So back in 2004-ish, my goal was to have $10 million worth of real estate. No, my goal was to have, $20 million worth of real estate and $10 million worth of debt. So I accomplished that.
Yeah.
Then 2007, 2008 comes along, and my $20 million worth of real estate went to $5 million. But guess what I still owed? $10 million.
Yeah.
Not a good math equation.
Yeah.
For me.
You went from a positive 50% to a negative 50%.
Yeah. And everything was based off equity, not cash flow.
Yeah.
And back then we had a lot of variable rates, not fixed rates.
Yeah.
And so, I was blessed to have a, pretty conservative life. I'm a lifestyle guy, so I'd rather have experiences than Lamborghinis and Porsches. So we traveled a lot and we did some cool things, but we kept ourselves in a position where when we saw the shift in the market, we just pivoted, right? Yeah. We're like, no one has equity anymore, which even now they did. I look back now, it's like, there's a lot of free and clear houses out there. I just was doing pre-foreclosure bailouts. Yeah. And so when everyone,
you were looking at this one bucket.
Yeah. Well, which is fine because that's all I knew. And I was really good at it, right? Yeah. And I didn't know there was other marketing strategies out there like that I know now. But so now, so what happened is we were blessed that we pivoted. We started actually a short sale business because everyone was upside down. Yeah. And so we pivoted and we were able to make some money doing that and actually acquire more houses once we saw the market level off again. But the difference between then and now is we have fixed debt.
Yeah. Variable
rates back then. It was so I think I had about 70 houses at that point. That we took over payments on, and the rates were variable. And I had the money, but I didn't know my $230,000 house that went down to $25,000 was going to be back up to $350 now.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and I would if I had the money, if I wrote it out, I'd have all these houses free and clear, and it'd be a different story. I just didn't know that what was going to happen. No one did. No, I mean, no one
So-
knew
so
that
what'd you do
COVID
about
was going to freaking do what it did
Dude,
either.
yeah.
You know,
I
so we
mean,
we all left a little bit of money on the table. But so anyway, what I did is I restructured. I didn't have to like file bankruptcy or do anything like that. I had some liquidity. I started working back with my the sellers that I took over subject to.
Yeah.
We worked out a plan. We started doing having short sale business. So I started working with the banks on my own stuff, settling the way I could, so I didn't have to do the whole bankruptcy thing. And so that's what I ended up doing. And then we wrote it out. I had people guiding me. They're like, you should just file bankruptcy. You'll be back in business literally the next day. And I'm like, I don't think that's what I want to do. And so I didn't. But then we learned wholesale.
Yeah.
In fact, my very first wholesale deal was Sean Terry when you weren't working with him. Stan the Man was there.
Stan was right before I came in.
Yeah.
With Sean.
And so I want to get educated too. So I just learned how to buy low and sell higher. Right?
Yeah. When you were talking about going door knocking and opening up the first door and having this big dude just, kind of greet you there and then slam the door. That's exactly what happened to Sean's first door knocking experience. Like that was his, he talks about that. And it was just reminding me like,
he and I are very our age-wise and stories are very, very, very similar. Yeah. He's amazing educator and
great dude,
leader as well. But yeah, so anyway, we ended up kind of pivoting.
Yeah.
And so now in today's market, the pivot is just learning how to structure debt in a way that you're protected. And subject to stuff is fine. Just making sure you structure it correctly, and that you protect the seller, and then you protect your borrower that you're selling to.
Right.
That's kind of where I'm at now. And I'm very strict, not strict, but I just tell people this is how it works. This is how I do it. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to do a deal. I'm very blessed. I don't have to. On Monday, wake up and do another deal. I love it though.
Yeah.
I mean, I love teaching it. I love being around guys like you and the whole community, just having these high level. I mean, I could do it for hours. I just love it.
I've seen you do it for hours.
Yeah.
We have a mastermind coming up, which I'm pretty excited about. Over the weekend, we're flying out to Tampa.
Yeah.
You're gonna be there to see you. So next week is gonna be interesting. I think it goes back to the entire who not how thing, right? We're always looking as entrepreneurs. We're looking to level up. We're looking to learn more and then look outside of that one bucket that we often live in. I know that if I wasn't, making an effort, right, to put myself in rooms like that, I wouldn't be able to do the stuff that I'm doing now. Like there's no, the perspective is already, out there. We just have to go, get exposed to it sometimes and really like building those connections, building those networks, those friendships, like the one we have. It matters in so many different levels, right? From that, friendship and emotional, part of things, but also from the inspiration part and then the perspective side of things. You're borrowing experience from people left and right when you put yourself in the right room. I say that because you mentioned right at the beginning, right? The first thing that you did, you took crazy action, which is like, I don't have a script. Mm-hmm. I don't even understand foreclosures. I'm just gonna go knock on that door and see what happens.
Yeah.
And then you got the opportunity, like, well, shit, what do I do with it now? You went to somebody who already had the game plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
the funny part about that is it's kind of funny. He showed up in his Honda Accord and picked me up and took me to the front of the course out steps. And then he got like a C class because I was like, this is great. I'll just go get contract signs all day long. Yeah. That's one of my, I would say that would be my superpower, one of them. Yeah. And so then, a few contracts came through. All of a sudden he's got a C class Mercedes and then and then he shows up because I would take him to the meetings. Yeah. I'd be like, hey, you need to come to this meeting. He's like, okay. And so then he shows up in his IMG, like or his higher, like $250,000 Mercedes. I'm like, no, we're not going in that. We're going my Civic. Okay. And then finally I didn't need him to do anything. I would just hand him off contracts. And fortunately for me, I had I was in corporate America. I had a great retirement situation. And so I was making, what I did my very first year working with him, I made more money part-time getting basically assignment fees and a piece of the deal.
Finding the deal.
Then I did my real job. And so that was it. I was like, okay, I can do this on my own. And so that's what I did. And so literally I'd print out 30 pre-foreclosures a day. And then technology got better, systems got better, and I was able to do that. And then obviously the market changed. And then that's when I went into, just shifted in the market. And now we're shifting back. Which I love the most, which is providing home ownership for people that deserve it, you know?
Yeah, there's always going to be a need, man. And I think there's so many different ways to skin the cat when it comes to real estate investments. But the need is going to be out there if we know where to look, right? Mm-hmm. We have to really stay on our toes. I mean, real estate is a practice, man. It's not like... and I say that because you talk to a doctor, it's a medical practice. Like they don't know it all. They don't know what's coming. They're like they come across new symptoms all the time. The same thing, same principle I feel with the investment world, right? It is a practice because you don't know if the next, pandemic is gonna, hit and then throw you off, your groove or whatever. What do?
Right.
You shift. You shift it. You pivot.
Yeah.
You shift.
Yeah.
And then you just re-strategize and come back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
You have to stay nimble like that.
Yeah.
Too,
one of the things, like I'm reading this book. I think it's called. We talked about it before, but it's like one of the things I'm thinking about. It's like what does I'm 50. All right. I have a 14 and a 15-year-old daughter who'll turn 16 this month. Boom. Actually, and so she'll be driving.
10 years behind you.
Crazy. So anyway, and so I'm reading this book. It's like, what does money mean to you, right? And you start asking yourself, okay, and I started making this list of all the things, and what it came down to is having time and experiences. Means like we'll go to Tampa and we'll have a freaking blast, and it's all these like-minded individuals, and everything. Honestly, we were on a call yesterday with this group. There's nothing we can't do within the group that we're in. Yeah. It's proximity. Right. And everybody's at a different level financially, but some people it's not financial that's important to them. Like me, financial is fine. I like the money, don't get me wrong, but I also like the time freedom to be able to do the things that I love and also provide value to my community and do all that stuff. And so the group that we're in, we just, it's all there. That's what we're so blessed about. Actually, Nick and I were just talking about today. We're like, God, man, we can't wait to go hang out for a couple days and have a bunch of fun and stay out late.
It's pretty interesting, man. Like you I remember the first time I walked into that room, and this is a family mastermind, but first time I walked into that room, I felt so inadequate. I felt so like, what am I doing here? Like I'm in the middle of just a bunch of rock stars. It was like, it felt so tiny. And then it really starts, the friendship start to develop and what happened for me, like I started to see my value, right? Within the group. It's like, all right, cool. They have different talent. Everybody has a different skill set. It's kind of like, the Avengers have different powers, right? The X-Men have different powers. It's like, similar thing. So somebody, may be at a different level with an X factor, right? But I think when you find the spaces like that, you're gonna bring your value to the table. You're gonna bring your own X factor, which contributes, to the overall making of that environment, that space.
Well, you just
really
so you
great.
know, you are one of the main leaders in that group, and you provide a ton of value for the systems and processes that you create. I mean, you're a freaking machine, and I wish I was better at it. I just have to hire people to do it. Like, I just go to Rafael, he'll tell you how to do it, and then just come back and let me do what I do, because you're really, really good at it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And it's fun. It's fun to do it, with people you enjoy being around with, right? It really becomes like hanging out with your people, with your friends. And then doing great shit together. So it's amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
Brother, thank you so much. I mean, this really turned into a master class on notes and your entire process. I love it. I'm definitely going to go back and rewatch it because I'm sure I missed some notes. Yeah. But if somebody wants to get a hold of you, maybe pick your brain a little more, join the program that you and Nick have. Yep. Where do they find you?
So we have the Creative Dealmaker Academy. Honestly, the best way to get a hold of me or follow me is on Instagram. It's Eric J Sage at Eric J Sage. So I have a ton of reels and stuff there. And then we also have our Creative Dealmaker our Creative Dealmaker on Facebook. It's a private Facebook group. It's free. I mean, gosh, I think we have over 7,000 people in there. So there's a lot of people in the community sharing and doing deals together. And then we also do, Nick and I do a call every week for about 2 hours, and we have the conversation we just had, that one example. We'll do that for 2 hours, and just people will bring their deals in, and we'll just get to underwriting, because a lot of people.
Did you guys do it inside the Facebook group? Or is that on the training?
So that's in our training. Okay. We used to do. We're going back and forth if we're going to go on a weekly. It came so time consuming but we're giving back to our community within our Facebook group, but then we also have the academy, and that's where our group shares, and we try to do deals together with them. But the cool part is we have people in our group that are just lenders. We call them the enders. They've already made all their money. We have people that are going out and doing deals. We have landlords. We have fix and flippers. We have realtors. We have everyone in that group they're in the real estate business. Yeah. They just add our little tool to the toolbox. And a lot of times what we found is that's what they end up doing, because they end up going that direction, because being a lien lord's better than a landlord in my
Well, I mean, I think it's a perfect bolt-on, right? It's almost like the next progression to a lot of the stuff that's out there. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, my area, my X factor, right? It's finding the sellers and then being in front of the sellers. How do we get to distressed properties on the coaching stuff and all that stuff? Mm-hmm. And when you're first in line, I mean, you can pick and choose what you do with that property, right?
That's right.
So what you guys do, I mean, plays right into that kind of model.
The cool thing that I now is, because the market's shifting, right? It's I would say it's kind of a buyer's market right now. That our direct to seller investors, they're getting deals at 60 cents on the dollar now. Well, if you can sell off your first lien at 65, 68%, you're making money selling your first lien plus the down payment, plus the cash flow. Yep. So I mean, I have guys that they'll make 30, 40,000 up front, where they would have made only $20,000 on a wholesale deal.
Right. Yeah.
They're making more. Yeah. And they have cash flow now.
It also matters, right? That your buyer or your consumer, it's not a
an end user.
Flipper. It's an end user. Yeah, I mean, that's where the gap really just kind of.
The cool thing, the other, like we don't really, like the example I told you, need a lot of work. Majority of our houses, we call them grandma houses or grandpa houses. They're clean. They just don't outdated have granite countertops or hardwood floors. But our buyers can move in there and live in it with their family, and then they can go add value when they want to. I mean, I sold one recently where I went by there about 6 or 7 months later. I mean, I swear to you, they put a $50,000 landscape package on there. They added a front porch, they added a guest house, and all it did was add less risk to me, because now the house is worth more. And I'm just like, man, I would have never done that. But it's their house. Yeah. How many tenants do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Never.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's amazing. Before we sign off, man, there's one question that I love asking. It's if you were walking down the street and you ran into your 17-year-old self, what piece of advice would you give that kid?
Oh, that's good. Well, the first, this is funny. You didn't even set me up for this. I'd find out who I am as an entrepreneur and as an individual. Like, what is my unique ability? Now, at 17 to now 50, probably changed a little bit, but it hasn't really, because I'm always, I have, I'm a D and an I in the disc, right? More I than D. But probably a little of both, because I'm an owner of a business. Yeah. But I love talking and I love communicating. If it's selling or whatever, I don't think that's ever changed for me. And so if I knew that when I was younger, like what my unique ability is, within reason, I have a pretty good leg up. Like we had to figure this stuff out. Yeah. I mean, rather than you can test this stuff. Like you have tests. That's what you do.
Brother, I put 10 years into my first business until this kicked in. Yeah. Like, oh shit, I just spent a decade.
Yeah. Like I know. I shouldn't have been doing that. Like, what am I doing? Sitting there reading spreadsheets. I go cross-eyed. Yeah. I need to be out talking to people. And then there's people that they geek out on spreadsheets. Yeah. And then there's people like you, like that. You kind of fit all of them. Like you're good at like all of those things, which that's a unique ability in itself. But if I was going to give myself any advice, I'd be like, go figure out who you are. Yeah. At least have a chance. I talk to my kids about it. They don't listen to me yet, but and learning that, and then go find find out where at least have an idea, and just go put yourself in proximity around great people. I don't want to go into like college and stuff, but I'm not up. I believe that going to college is great, but nowadays I think there's so many opportunities to work with quality entrepreneurs that want to help young people. I do. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be around really young, aggressive, fun people that fit in our business, so they can learn.
The energy's there. And,
Yeah. So, but yeah, that would be my advice: is figure out kind of who you are. There's a ton of tests out there. I mean, you've got the DISC, you've got the we do DISC, and what do you use?
DISC.
You use DISC.
Yeah.
What's the other one that you guys use?
I mean, there's
oh God, I just went brain dead.
Yeah.
I thought it started with a P. Anyway, there's a ton of them.
Yeah,
Personality tests, and I think I think our kids as they get older should start learning that, because it's not fair, like, for kids to go sit in a school and not be able to utilize their unique ability at a young age even. And so,
well, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding of the world too. When I got heavy, and I mean, my background turned into psychology because of that same exact reason.
Yep.
Like, I wanted to understand how people process, how people think, right?
Yeah.
And I figured out who I was, but then I got curious about how to identify other people as we go along, and then your understanding becomes so much better. It's almost hard to get pissed off, right? When you understand how people process information, how people process context.
And then you put yourself around the people that you should be around to be successful.
Well, yeah,
and
exactly.
then like for me, I need an integrator. Like, I'm not going to integrate anything.
Yeah.
I'm a huge visionary, and I'll take action, and I have an idea.
You'll
of what's
go door
going,
knock.
I'll go do some stuff, and then someone has to fix all the things behind me, right? But once you know that, and then that person, that integrator, they want me to go do that. They want me to be successful.
Yeah, exactly.
They might want to be in the background. They don't want to be the limelight or whatever. And I can go back and forth with that, but that's the whole point of this stuff is what you're great. It's been great for me to learn it. I mean, most people never learn it.
Yeah.
Never.
I teach. Were you in that class that I dropped that family mastermind?
I think so.
On behavioral tendencies and DISC and profiles? Yeah. So that same class, I mean, I've taught it multiple times. I just taught it at batch for the entire staff, and I'm doing it for a couple of title agencies and whatnot. They just asked me to come in and do that. But that same class, I've taught it to my kids.
Yeah.
And he's 16 years old, right? The 11-year-old kid, like, he's a mess. He says an extreme I, and so he's not there yet. But he's, I still challenge him with things like that here and there, and it's just really cool to see how, like, the understanding starts to kind of sink in. Like, okay, cool.
You throw little things at your kids. Like, my son's playing golf now. He's been around golf a lot, and my daughter plays sports too. But you keep throwing those little things at them, and then eventually, what you tell them, they listen.
Bro, they will surprise you. Yeah, they will surprise you. Now, like, they weaponize it and use it against me when I'm. You're
like, wait a minute.
Which is like.
Why are you doing that to me?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Listen, I'm the dad. But no, it's. I think it's really cool, and it's great advice. I mean, figure out who you are. The reason I go back to that 17-year-old age is because when I was 17, back in Yuma, I mean, I felt like I knew who I was. I felt like I owned the world, and I could do it all, right? Like, I had, big dreams in context, and I don't. My attitude was there, and then I went into the fire department. When I moved into entrepreneurship and I started working on this business, I feel like I lost myself during my 20s. Yeah. So I stopped hanging out with a lot of my friends and really good relationships and whatnot. And I honed in on the trench work, on building the business, and I got burned out in my mid 20s. And I know for a fact that I lost myself during that time period.
Right.
And I did some internal work and introspective just remembering who I was, and I went back to 17. 17 was like, oh shit, that's when I had the world figured out. Like, I need to go back and that was the closest I had ever known to who I was.
Okay.
So that's the root of that question, right? Which is, I mean, it's an incredible thing. And if you lose yourself along the way, just recapture yourself. right? Which is exactly what happened to me.
Yeah.
I was able to tap back into that 17-year-old energy with the 4-year-old experience.
Yeah.
And it's all well. So
That's interesting. No, I mean, I've thought about it too, but yeah, I was pretty driven. Like my whole goal in life was to be a professional golfer. Like that's growing up in Yuma for all places, So pretty driven for that. But I did, I mean, we had a ton of fun, and we're here, we're where we're supposed to be right now. That's for sure.
Yeah. I love it, man. Well, it's been a blast. Thank you so much, man. Picking your brain is always, it's always interesting. It's always entertaining. It's always a can of worms, and I have to go back and restudy it, which is fucking awesome.
Did you go through any of the stuff on your initial notepad?
No, I just took a bunch of notes. I mean, it turned into a masterclass, literally.
Good.
So, bro, thank you so much for being here. Always a pleasure, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah.
Fam, there you guys have it. If you didn't catch all of that, go back and re-listen to the episode. This is a really, really sharp strategy, especially if you're in the real estate investment space or you want to get into something else like that, right? So be a lien lord, not a landlord. Eric Sage crushed it today. With that, I say stay focused. You got this. Let's go.